what most customers see is the finished product sitting on the shelf. What I get to see is everything that happens before that. We're no longer chasing perfection anymore. We're chasing long-term health and long-term optimization. Most people think innovation just starts with a new ingredient, like something new came up, we've got to jump on the bandwagon. But in reality, it starts with a problem or an unmet need, right? If you're only developing products based on what people are already asking for, you're already late to the game.
This is Skin Talks, the podcast where we go deeper than skin, products, and trends and explore the conversations that actually matter in health, beauty, wellness, and confidence.
We're a mother-daughter duo and the founders of Boutique Skin Envie. After years inside the industry, we've learned that health is never just about what you use. It's about everything you digest, how you think, how you live, what you eat, how you move, what you put on your skin, and how you feel in your own body.
If you're looking for insight, honesty, and a fresh perspective on the future of health, beauty, and wellness, you're in the right place.
Let's get into it.
Skin Talks podcast by Boutique Skin Envie, hosted by Beata and Natasha.
Over the past few years, the entire industry has quietly shifted the way it talks. Anti-aging is on the way out, longevity is in. It seems like all of a sudden, everyone is talking about regeneration and repair, exosomes, growth factors, salmon DNA, even zombie cells. Some of it is real, exciting science. Some of it is very expensive marketing. And honestly, most of us can't tell the difference. So today we brought in someone who can, someone who sits right at the source of it all. She isn't selling you a bottle. Her job is to decide what gets researched, tested, and proven before it ever lands on the shelf. Giselle is the Chief Brand and Innovation Officer at Alumier MD, where she runs the brand, product innovation, and clinical research. That makes her exactly the right person to help us sort through the real from the hype.
Giselle, welcome to Skin Talks. We're so excited for this conversation. You see this industry from a spot almost nobody gets to stand in. What does your job actually involve, and what do you get to see from the rest of us that don't?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an absolute honor, and I'm absolutely excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you.
Thank you. Well, I get that. That's probably one of the most popular questions I get asked. I have the privilege of working alongside some incredibly talented leaders and teams across marketing and product innovation, clinical education, and clinical research. But what I'm responsible for is essentially helping to shape the direction of the brand, right? How we show up in the market, what we stand for, the problems we're trying to solve, and the innovations that we choose to bring forward. And that includes anything from marketing to brand strategy to new product innovation. How do we clinically substantiate everything? And ultimately translating that science behind our formulas into meaningful tools, relevant tools that professionals can use when consulting and treating their patients. But I would say kind of at the highest level, my role is to ensure we're bringing forward innovation that is scientifically credible, clinically relevant in the modern world, and commercially meaningful, right? It all needs to be something that professionals genuinely get excited to bring to their practice, because that's where innovation truly comes to life, right? Through real patient experiences and outcomes. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what I oversee. And I've spent 22 wonderful years in professional skincare across many different facets. And what most customers see is the finished product sitting on the shelf. What I get to see is everything that happens before that. And that can be 1 to 2 years, right?
No, it's so cool though, because there's so much happening in our industry. To be able to be in the background and watch what's going on with innovation, especially today, I find there's so much out there in a good way, but there's also a lot of noise, right?
Absolutely. And that's what makes the role so fascinating. You never get bored, that's for sure.
No.
It's fascinating.
It's so cool though. I love that you have that oversight from the behind the scenes and then to bringing products to market.
I just wanted to quickly, you mentioned that before you just quick squeeze in 1 to 2 years. Is that, so like how long does it take from the moment you guys decide what's coming out next to when it actually gets launched? Like what's that process?
That's a great question. I would say from ideation through to launch depending on the category of product that you're launching. If you're launching a product that is regulated, like a sunscreen or a product containing salicylic acid for acne treatments, that typically takes longer if manufactured in Canada because we've got so many Health Canada regulations and tests that need to be conducted. So that can take anywhere from 15 to 24 months, whereas a regular product, and I say regular, just not registered, can take anywhere from 12 to 15 months, I would say, from end to end. Yeah.
Okay. And so walk us through how an idea becomes a product. Where does it start and how many ideas die in the lab before one makes it out?
I'm sure a lot.
What a great question. I think most people think innovation just starts with a new ingredient, like something new came up, we've got to jump on the bandwagon. But in reality, it starts with a problem or an unmet need, right? So if you're only developing products based on what people are already asking for, you're already late to the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard that our CEO often references Henry Ford's famous quote with, he asked people if he asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. I think there's a lot of truth in that, right? I would say, the very beginning part of the innovation is really listening to customers, listening to professionals and what they're seeing and how they expect to be treating the skin moving forward. But it's also about identifying shifts before they're widely recognized, right? It's about understanding kind of where the science is headed, how patients' needs are evolving, how lifestyle, environmental exposures are changing, and asking, what challenges people are likely to face next, not the ones that they are talking about today. So for us on our team, that means spending a lot of time evaluating emerging research, looking at trends through a really rigorous scientific lens, and determining whether we're seeing a short-term trend or a meaningful shift in our understanding of skin health.
Yeah.
So that's where it begins.
Yeah, and it
for
can't
us.
be so easy, eh? It can't be so easy because sometimes there's so many moving pieces and so much innovation and, trends that come up, and it's like, how do you know? It's
Absolutely. And it's so overwhelming these days, right?
That's what I mean.
With
There's so
everything people
much.
have access to. Yeah. So, I really do feel that innovation isn't just about creating more products. It's really about solving meaningful problems in a way that's credible and effective and genuinely gives us an opportunity to advance skin health through experts like you guys.
Yeah.
And so when an ingredient like pops up out of like nowhere and it blows up online and maybe you guys I don't know, I don't want to say miss the boat, but like what happens when there's this all of a sudden like this new ingredient that's just like super hyper focused? What's the process in office?
It's so funny because ingredients come up
All the
regularly.
time.
And you guys see it all the time as well, right? I have the wonderful privilege of attending an ingredient science show that typically gives us ingredients that are on the final phases of testing that we won't see come into the industry for a couple of years. So I get a sneak peek at what that is looking like. But the first question isn't, does it work? It's the question that comes forward is, what is it supposed to be doing? What is this ingredient meant to do?
What problem is it solving?
Yeah, exactly. And then before we look at the claims, we want to understand the biological mechanism. To your point, exactly what's happening in the skin and what pathway is it influencing? And is there really plausible scientific rationale behind all of the hype?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true because there's so many things. But how often is this show or this conference that you go to? How often does that happen? Is it an annual thing?
It's an annual show, once
and
a year.
And where is it, if out of curiosity?
This year they did it in Paris, was it?
Oh, lucky, get to travel.
Yeah, it's an incredible show, and I'm a big science geek, right? So I get to sit with all the chemists and talk about kind of where they're at in their clinicals and
I love that.
and how it's working and how it's evolving. But to your point earlier, the industry that we're in is moving incredibly fast, right? Faster than ever before. So I feel new ingredients can gain attention almost overnight. And it's our job as those that are providing you products to determine whether we're seeing a moment in time or whether we're seeing something that aligns with where science is actually headed and how our understanding of skin biology evolves, right?
Yeah.
So crazy.
100%.
So you're really in the know. I love that.
Yeah, no, that is fun.
She sees an
It's
ingredient comes out.
fun.
She's like, I've known about this for a year.
Yeah. And, you know,
Yeah,
and
I've already old news.
there's also like, you know, a lot of companies claim that there's studies on stuff. Like, how do you know when there's enough proof behind something that you actually integrated or put a name on it?
One of the things that people will say about me, especially my team, is that I'm a stickler. I'm very rigorous when it comes to evaluating because there's so many claims out there, right?
Right.
And not a lot of regulation. So the study is the starting point. But it's not a conclusion. I think a study can be interesting. It can point us in the right direction. But before we put our brand name behind something, I really need to understand the full picture. So, you know, where was it studied? Was it a raw ingredient or the full finished formula? That's another big one. Is it the one ingredient that proved a specific claim or supported a specific claim? Or is it that ingredient amongst the full formula? Because that can influence the results
the
as well,
percentage,
right?
The percentage
Yeah.
and the tolerability also. There's all the different things that can the skin handle it. And when you mix it in formula, is it still as effective? There's a lot into... there's a lot. We've done some podcasts, some episodes on formulations, and people think it's like very, very easy. You just mix this with that, but it's not that easy. And to be able to
100%.
produce something that actually has an effect.
Exactly. And you have both been exposed to some really exciting ingredient specific trials, and that's great. And a lot of times you do see that correlation, but you know, you have to look at the full product, and we're looking at who's running the study, right?
Also, yeah.
This is really important to me.
If
Where
it's
is it
just
being
like a bunch of
conducted?
friends that are sitting around and saying, hey, we're trying all these vitamin C's, which happens, and then it's published. They publish it in a magazine that says, oh, peer reviewed studies. And it's just opinion.
What's the the standard for checking clinical studies? Like, what's it called? Is it
The JDD, I think, isn't it called the JDD, the Journal of Dermatology in the United States?
So
Drugs
there
and
are
dermatology.
some really, there's a few, there's JDD is absolutely one of the publications. So once you complete a study, if you know, you can submit it for publication and they'll review it quite rigorously as well. And what these top derm journals are looking for is real innovation, real credibility, new concepts as well. So we, in the last 3 studies that we conducted, they were all picked up by the JDD, which was fantastic.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're looking at a study as well, and I think this will be especially meaningful for you as a professional, you look at the pool of like the patient population within that study as well, right? How is the study designed? Are the conclusions supported by statistically significant data? Because we want to make sure that what we're bringing forward, you align with patient suitability, and therefore you need to include demographics and environmental factors as well, right?
It's very detailed. You have to be very and controlled also. It's just, but there's a lot of marketing around all these, you know, backed by science claims and results claims that we have. So, you know, I guess the big picture message is do your research, find out where as a consumer at least, right?
100%.
So I want to get into, which I really love, is we had this thing for years and years and years, decades of anti-aging, and it's really shifted towards skin longevity, which I love, this movement of anti-aging, like it's a negative thing, into prolonging skin health and longevity for as long as possible. So we've basically swapped out anti-aging for longevity. Is that a real change in your opinion, or is it just a new label in the same bottle?
I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on this question as well. I might get shot in the foot for this, but I feel longevity has become so overused.
Yeah.
It is such an overused term in our industry. I mean, like, if you really look at the concept, the science is real, right? But the word itself has become so broadly applied that I feel like it's really losing its meaning, right? What do you think about that?
Well, the thing is I never loved the term anti-aging, because it puts a negative connotation around aging, where I have always looked at aging like a privilege, you know? And, you know, your skin, how you look as you age is a beautiful thing. Whereas somehow in the past, for whatever reason, people feel like there's a lot of people that have referred, like my mother, for example, will say to me, wait till you get older, Beata, you become invisible. And it's like this whole, and I don't agree with it. I think it's a mindset. I think, and it's women, I think, get affected more deeply than men. And
Yes.
I don't like the word anti-aging. So I appreciate the fact that there's another way to describe it as longevity, but I do agree that it's completely overused and there's a lot of misinformation around it. Like I said before, aging for me is a privilege. And when you have fine lines and wrinkles on your face and you have a little bit of lack of firmness and, you show a little bit of a different expression in your face versus where you were younger, versus when you were younger, for me, that's an expression of your life that we should be celebrating.
Oh,
I think we
couldn't
should be,
agree with you more.
it's a celebration of the life that you've lived, and every wrinkle that you have is because you laughed, because you had expression and stuff. But I understand also from being somebody in my mid 50s that, you feel the same in your head. And then you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, wow, like I've got some fine lines and wrinkles, like serious ones underneath my eyes. And if you want to make a change about those things, those changes should be for you, not to please others. Right. So
absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And it should be celebrated. And you know what? We have the wonderful privilege of living longer, right?
Mhm.
And we
Right.
should be able to celebrate that. But I find myself gravitating towards more the concept of regenerative health as
Yeah.
opposed to longevity. So regenerative skin health, because, at its core, it's really what we're talking about, right? How do we support the skin's natural or biological ability to defend itself, repair damage, renew efficiently, and recover from stress, and maintain that healthy function over time when we know chronologically these activities at a cellular level start to decline, right? So for me, it's more of a meaningful conversation than simply talking about longevity. So yes, to answer your question, there's a real shift happening, and
Mhm.
you've seen it in practice. Patients are talking about it. It's all over social. But I think the shift is less about living forever or looking younger forever and more about truly understanding how biology works,
Yeah.
what disrupts it, and how do we
Lifestyle.
optimize it. Exactly. How do we optimize it through awareness to support healthier, more responsive, defensive skin longer?
Yeah. And that's got to do with everything else:
Mhm.
sleep, water intake, food,
So many
how we
factors.
think. So there's so many factors that go into
Yeah.
that are, and then the supporting is the skincare and the treatments and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's just, anyways. Yeah.
I often, when I speak to, when I'm traveling and I get to speak to professionals, I often ask them, how many of you are wearing an Aura ring or a smartwatch? And so many people put their hands up, and I'm like, well, why do you do that? Well,
Exactly.
it's awareness, right?
Yeah.
The only way to be proactive is to be aware. So if you got a ring reminding you that you haven't slept sufficiently, you're in sleep debt, or your stress levels are up, or you need to move your body, these are all ways to have that awareness so that we can proactively do something about our health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
true.
I also noticed that there's a lot of talk about like the skin barrier and like all of that too. I think that plays into it. It's not just trying to like fix an issue that you see. It's more like bringing it more of a holistic, like making sure your barrier is healthy, like making sure everything from the bottom up is healthy, which I also really like.
Yeah. We
You
have a
know?
culture though. I find we have a culture in North America that first of all, we live our life how we want to live our life through our youth and then all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden wake up one day, but you wake up one day and you think, oh my gosh, look at me. Like I've gained 25 pounds. I look
Yeah.
tired, blah, blah, blah. And then we want to do something and reverse it all
Like quickly.
like yesterday.
Yeah.
Go to the gym, diet for a week, and I should be good to go. But it just doesn't work that way. So I think that this miracle culture, I think we need to be thinking more about your body's a temple. You need to take care of it throughout your life so that when you get to that point of your life of perimenopause, menopause, where things really you start to see the shift, that you already have a great baseline so that you can just support your skin health and your aging process in a more healthy, mindful way, rather than just looking for that miracle.
Exactly. And, we're seeing a lot of those processes that would happen a lot later in life actually present a lot sooner in life.
Mhm.
And there's no coincidence to that because, and you brought it up kind of indirectly before, but you talked about a few lifestyle factors and lifestyle and environmental, the solar and urban exposure, because we're living longer, are much more significant and much more damaging to the skin. So, when we look at that awareness aspect, it's so fundamentally important because we're no longer chasing perfection anymore. We're chasing long-term health and long-term
Yeah.
optimization. People know and understand that their skin has shifted. We're seeing an emergence of a new skin that comes forward to see you as professionals for treatment or home care. And it's a skin that needs specific attention. So traditional methods of treating it and traditional methods of using ingredients in the skin has to shift alongside that kind of modern day phenotype that we're seeing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
interesting. That's
Very
interesting.
totally, yeah.
Mhm.
Can you break down the biology of our skin for us? Because I feel like that's a really hot topic. I have this conversation often, but I always forget. As the skin ages, what can we really influence and what is honestly out of our hands?
This is an excellent question. One that I actually really enjoy answering because it gives us hope,
Yeah.
right? We want to celebrate aging, but there's actually quite a bit more to celebrate, more than we actually think. The biggest threat to aging isn't time, it's actually exposure.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect transition, right? We can't stop chronological aging. We can't stop the time from moving forward. That's completely out of our control. But when we look at, the visible signs of aging, a significant portion of what we're seeing is actually influenced by cumulative chronic exposure over a lifetime. We study that, and that's called the study of the exposome. So that's inclusive of, exposure to UV radiation and pollution and a range of environmental stressors that lead to that chronic inflammation, but also lifestyle factors that we touched on earlier, lack of sleep, your diet, your stress levels, your physical activity, repeated assaults. These repeated assaults have a detriment on the skin and how the skin ages. And that's actually encouraging because it means we have control, right? We can strengthen the barrier. We can support with antioxidant defense. We can reduce oxidative stress by targeting specific pathways and optimize the skin's natural defense mechanisms. But what we can't change is genetics
Yeah.
or stop the passage of time. Thankfully, 90% of what we can control is that.
Yeah.
10% is genetic. So that
Yeah.
puts us in a really good spot.
Yeah.
But it all comes to awareness, right? Really understanding. And there's no use in correcting because if you're going to just correct without targeting that defense first aspect, you're taking 2 steps forward and 20 steps
Yeah.
back the moment you step outside.
Yeah, exactly. So
Are you seeing shifts? Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Ask your
Are
question.
you seeing shifts in the way patients show up to practice today?
I mean, yes and no. There's some people that are still, there's some people that are doing the same thing that they've done for the last 20 years, the way I see it. And there's some people that are a new wave of people coming in and saying, okay, I'm here today. Can you build me a 12-month program with treatment and product so that I can, because it takes us that long to get to where we are. It takes time. So people, there's still the people that come in and say, okay, I'm just going to do Botox and fillers so you can topically improve the appearance. And then there's a whole other wave of people saying, put me on a 12-month program. I want to see you because I've got a wedding next year in August. I want my skin to look as best as it can be. And that we're seeing more and more, but we also specialize in our clinic. We build programs for people over long-term. We really don't like short-term stuff. And we're always in our messaging is about, we can do a facial for you. We can do an IPL treatment, but if you're not using home care at home and you're not staying out of the sun and protecting your skin, if you're not sleeping properly, if you're not eating well, all of these things, inflammation in the body is going to cause the pigment to come back. Do this. So we build skin lifestyles for people, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's more and more popular. And that's where we really, really see change.
Difference.
Yeah, we take before and after pictures of our patients sometimes, and it is mind-boggling the change in their skin when they are on consistent routines and they really commit to it. There's a lot of people that are still in the mindset of, well, you know what, I can't change it because my mother looked this way and it's just part of my genetics, where we go to that, your genetic is your genetic, but you can have a very positive influence. And just because your mother had brown spots and wrinkles doesn't mean that you're going to get them.
100%. And you know what? You brought something up that I'm so grateful that you did. And ultimately, like, your incredible success leans back on your approach and how you treat and look at skincare and and treatment, right? As a 360-degree approach. It's not just, what you do in practice, it's what you put on at home, but it's also the decisions that you make. But I feel like, with today's influence and the level of influence, patients are exposed to before and afters without any context.
Yeah.
So they're coming into practice with these crazy expectations that they can achieve something short term, like you mentioned. But the reality is, takes time. It takes time and you need to build that up. So I love your approach, and I love that you're taking them through essentially a journey to get there and maintain those results long term, because it's not a quick fix.
It's not. And, but people that we do this with, and it's probably, I would say, maybe like 25 or 30% of our clientele gets it. But we also tell that story through our Instagram page. Like, this is before, this is during, this is what we've done. She's still got 6 months more to go.
I've spoken to professionals, and you still, you're there, tending your patients, making sure that you're with them along that journey, but you're also having to be influencers today, because that's where our patients are. So the ability to do that seamlessly and make sure that your patients are actually educated and not just influenced is so powerful. And I, really hats off to you both for doing that so effectively, because it makes a difference.
It does make a difference. And, it's encouraging to people when they show up with girlfriends or they're out for dinner with people and they're like, they tell me all the time, their friends are, what happened to your skin? What are you doing? Because you look so great and stuff. And it's 3 months into the treatment process that people start to notice. So Alumier talks a lot about oxidative aging. So can you debunk that? What is it? And why should that change the way somebody builds their routine?
Absolutely. So as we've spoken about quite a bit today, today's skin is exposed to an unprecedented number of solar, urban, and lifestyle threats. We went through a few of them. UV radiation is one that everyone knows about, but there's infrared, there's pollution, there's ozone. There's also lifestyle factors like poor sleep and chronic stress. All of those things, they all contribute to oxidative stress within the skin. Now, what's important to understand is that oxidative aging is not just oxidative stress. Oxidative aging is the product of a self-perpetuating cycle between oxidative stress and chronic low-grade inflammation. So let me break it down. As these exposures accumulate, they begin to overwhelm the skin's natural defense systems and antioxidant pathways. And at the same time, they activate biological pathways that amplify inflammation. And that inflammation creates additional oxidative stress, which then drives more inflammation. So over time, the skin becomes trapped in that vicious cycle. And that's what we call oxidative aging. And, the consequences are very real. I talked about a new skin phenotype evolving or emerging, where we see increased pigmentation and discoloration. We see collagen degradation and advanced laxity much sooner than we've seen before. We're seeing the visible effects of glycation, again, happening much sooner. And glycation is a natural chronological process. It's not just reserved for those that consume high amounts of refined sugars. We see barrier dysfunction, increased sensitivity and reactivity, skin that recovers more slowly and responds less effectively. All of these are biological consequences of oxidative aging, but ultimately, and I think more importantly, something that we absolutely have control over if we have a defense-first mindset and we're aware of what's causing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Preventative approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the threats, the extrinsic threats really lean back to lifestyle, solar, and urban. It's simple, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow.
Let's talk about acne, because it's not just a skin problem, it's an emotional one. And the worst part, most acne products are either too gentle to work or so harsh they destroy your barrier. Zeo Skin Health's complexion clearing program finds the balance. It targets oil, bacteria, and inflammation at the root while protecting the barrier and supporting healing. It was designed by dermatologists, and we've seen it change people's confidence and not just their skin. If you tried anything else and still aren't clear, start here. Use code SKINTALKS15 at bskinonvie.ca. That's BSKINENVIE.ca for 15% off your first order.
It's so interesting when you get into these conversations. We've got a little guest with us right now. We've got Maximilian here.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Oh, what a sweetheart.
I know. We just
love
did
the name.
an episode about Natasha and being a mom at 6 months old, and she called it raw dogging it, Mom. I'm just raw dogging it, you know, like raw dogging motherhood. And so here we are recording an episode, and while Tashi's breastfeeding, I actually love it. I love it. I think it's just real, and it's really supports women in business and career-minded people. You know, me too.
100%.
So I want to get into some ingredients that are hot right now. And, you know, what I want to really understand is, you know, we talked about regenerative ingredients and we want to know if your thoughts on each one of these particular ingredients and kind of give us a verdict if they're real, if they have promise, or if they're mostly just marketing. Buzzwords, you know, and because it's all we hear about. And I mean, if you're into skincare, and for myself on my Instagram feed, I'm seeing this kind of stuff constantly. So the first one is exosomes.
Exosomes. Promising, absolutely promising. I think we've only scratched the surface when it comes to exosomes. There's still an enormous amount of research to be done. And I suspect we're only beginning to understand its full potential and how they truly influence skin biology. I think what excites me most about exosomes right now, it's where we're learning about cellular communication and how we may eventually optimize those signaling pathways. I'm personally staying very focused right now on the evolution of encapsulates and delivery systems through exosomes. So it's something I'm keeping a keen eye on for sure. The science is exciting.
It is. I think so too. Okay, next one would be PDRN or salmon DNA.
So I think PDRN is another example of a category that's generating a lot of interest right now all over the world.
And
right?
I think it's like its roots are Korean, right?
Yes, I think
mostly in Korean skincare. That's where I've heard about it most.
It started to pick up significantly in Europe, and it's now made its way to North America. And, you know, there's some interesting science emerging around regenerative medicine and PDRN. Am I interested in it? Of course. I think in my role, I would be crazy not to be interested in it, but it's not an area that I'm personally focused on. I think you have to really, like, topical versus injected, it really does play a role in the effects and how it truly supports regenerative skin health. So I think when it comes to PDRN, my perspective is one of curiosity rather than pursuit.
Interesting. And but I've never heard of PDRN. I know it is, but I think it's also something that's happening more in Asia, injectable versions of PDRN. But I haven't seen it here. Have you?
No.
Have you seen it at all
I've
in
seen
North America?
In Europe, mainly.
Yeah. Okay.
Slowly. We've got regulatory limitations here as well, but there's I think there's a difference in the outcomes when you look at topical versus injections.
Okay.
Growth factors.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like people misunderstand growth factors with exosomes. There's like this misunderstanding back and forth. I mean, in the consumer world. So maybe to help us to understand that.
So, I mean, growth factors have been around for a long time, right? They're supported by meaningful science. And, you know, I'm interested in hearing more about advancements in growth factor technology. I think it's always important to stay ahead of what's going on. I think, you know, there's a big difference between endogenous and exogenous growth factors as well. That would play a role in.
What would that be? Explain that.
Endogenous is sourced from internally or biologically mimicked from like your biology, and then exogenous, like plant-based growth factors, for example.
Okay.
When I look at regenerative skin health and where I think some of the most exciting opportunities exist, my focus is not on growth factors. It's 100% on peptides. I think specifically, the versatility, the rapidly evolving science around peptide technology is so incredibly exciting. And it's so widely studied for so many different applications. And the patient suitability and safety profile on peptides is incredible. So that's definitely where my focus will remain,
So
not
you
on
think
growth
factors have kind of had their day? They've been around.
I'm not as excited about them.
Okay. So my next one was peptides. So tell us a little bit more about peptides.
Like what
they are,
Yeah. I used to think that if you would have asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have said peptides are one of the most underrated categories in skincare. And our clinical education team knows this because I've been, singing
Relentless.
about peptides for many, many years. They're not flashy, they're not new, but they continue to demonstrate value because they support very specific biological pathways and communication at a cellular level in ways that we haven't seen possible. So as we continue to learn more about peptides and the more opportunities we see to support these specific biological pathways, it leads to more intelligent innovation, more targeted innovation, and increasingly sophisticated innovation because we are now slowly starting to access AI-based peptide building. So you
Interesting.
can actually break down these amino acids and customize them. And it's just fascinating what's coming. So they've absolutely earned their place. And when it comes to regenerative skin health, I strongly believe peptides are here to stay. And we are seeing brands speak about peptides more and more.
It's a lot.
This
It's
is
hot.
something, it's hot. And we've been focusing on peptide research since inception. And we're just going to continue moving forward with that.
Yeah.
Fun.
Because it's ever evolving.
And so at what
Yeah.
age should somebody start using peptides?
Well, it depends because there's so many different types of peptides, right? There's peptides to help support an acne-prone patient. There's peptides to help with diffuse redness of a rosacea patient. There's peptides to help with regeneration and repair kinetics, barrier function, healing. It really depends.
Okay.
And then when you build a formula, you customize that peptide selection to the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
very
awesome.
interesting. It's very
Very cool.
interesting.
I love that actually.
Senescent or zombie cells. We're hearing a lot about this.
Zombies. So zombie cells, I find it's quite fun. So senescence is absolutely real. The term zombie cells, I think, is just a more memorable way of
Yeah.
helping people understand a very complex biological concept. And essentially what these zombie cells or senescent cells are cells that are no longer functioning optimally. They're not behaving like healthy, productive cells, but they're also not being efficiently cleared by the body. And that's why we call them zombies, because they're kind of just lingering. And what's important about these cells is they can actually contribute to a pro-inflammatory environment. So they can cause inflammation and oxidative stress and then influence the neighboring cells, that are healthy, impacting tissue function and the way that the skin responds. So is senescence real? 100%. And zombies are just a fun way to learn it.
Okay, interesting. So in your opinion, how does a normal person supposed to know what they're supposed to do or not supposed to do? What's the biggest giveaway that a claim is marketing dressed up as science kind of thing?
That's a tough one. And it's funny because with my team, we have these incredible substantiated claims. And when it comes to marketing with regulatory guardrails, there's only so much we can say. So that becomes challenging. But, the biggest giveaway, I think, is certainty. Science is usually quite nuanced and marketing is absolute, right? So if something sounds too dramatic, overly exaggerated, too easy, or too good to be true, that's usually the moment where you need to start asking more questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it goes
Who
back to the
conducted-
miracle culture that we talk about. Just like if something looks like a miracle, there's no miracle.
Exactly, 100%. And I'm sure you've seen it too, or someone has, expressed exaggerated claims and percentages that are off the walls. What do you do as professionals? I mean, you are esteemed professionals. How do you question that?
Well, I don't believe any of it.
Yeah, we have a lot of doubt.
I look at stuff like that and I just think, well, that's not possible, without
Yeah.
it, some sort of intervention or something. But I do know that, there is a whole lot that can be done, incredible things that can be done. But you really need to be on a designed program that's customized to you. And it's very personal from one person to the next. I don't buy all of the stuff that, that's just too good to be true. I just don't.
100%. And as esteemed professionals, I think you are able to easily
You
decipher
can
what
see it.
real science is and what isn't. But to your point, and I think it's really, really important that people are reminded, is that every skin is so unique. And when we look at the exposome, right? The exposome is as unique as your fingerprint.
Yeah.
And only a professional who knows and understands your skin best, knows your surroundings, knows your lifestyle, is able to give you something that's going to be effective. So, and they understand the science. So keep it simple. If it sounds crazy, if it's just too good to
We
be true,
lost her.
question it. Number two, get in touch with a pro. Like, stop guessing, stop
Yes.
trialing things out, because you end up really disrupting the barrier if you're just playing around without having any real guidance. But professionals know your skin and they can predict how ingredients are going to work, how treatments are going to function, and save yourself a lot of time and money and
A
optimize
lot.
your results,
Yeah.
right?
Which
No, we
leads
love
us
that.
kind of into the next question. So
Yeah.
there's a darker side to all this renewal. Can chasing actually hurt or damage your skin? And I think that is we've done a lot of episodes with pediatric dermatologists and a lot of different things about this question. I'm curious about your opinion on it.
I'm 100% certain that I see eye to eye with you as a professional on this one. One of the biggest misconceptions I find in skincare is that more stimulation automatically equals better results. So let's load on the acids, more retinoids, more procedures, more devices, more exfoliation. And the barrier pays the price. And it affects how your skin is going to respond to any treatments that you're trying to do, whether it's in practice or at home. So regeneration should never be confused with aggression, because they certainly don't go hand in hand.
Yeah. And you have to give this, like, if your skin, when we look at things like microneedling, for example, it's a temporary inflammation. You're activating, you're imposing like an injury, and then you have this defense mechanism that your body goes into repair and restore the skin, which builds collagen and can clear a lot of things up. And we have amazing results when you couple that together with the home care routine and stuff like that. But if somebody comes in that's done a lot of microneedling, and we have seen it before, and their skin is in a constant state of inflammation, it can actually prematurely age the skin, where they actually look older after like 6 months of treatments or a year of treatments than they did before they came in, because they're doing too much to their skin and they're too aggressive, combining it with the products and overstimulation and too much inflammation in the skin. Have you seen stuff like that?
Oh, all the time. Because professionals are able to set the environment for controlled trauma in the skin.
Yeah.
And controlled trauma is a good thing, right?
It is.
Because and it's important for regeneration. But what's accessible right now is essentially similar tools that you can buy off marketplace and just try it yourself.
I know.
But they don't know how to read warning signs or predict how their skin is responding or what those responses actually mean. And that's why, like, investing time with a professional can save you time, energy, resources, and actually a lot of damage that could potentially be done when you try to take matters into your own hands. So 100%, like, irritation is not a proof of efficacy. Redness is not proof. Burning is not proof. So if you're trying to amplify that on your own, you're really going to cause serious damage. And to your point, age faster, discolor, totally dismantle your barrier. And that shouldn't be how we treat the skin if we want to treat it effectively.
No. So the long game is where I see it always. Make a plan, follow good hygiene, age appropriate, and then build as you age, as you get older, and troubleshoot along the way, but most of all, prevention and lifestyle, I think, is really important when it comes to all of this, instead of trying to accelerate things too quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. Don't you find that when you take that approach, right? So we talked a lot about the exposome and we talked about oxidative aging and that defense first mindset. When that long game is about defense, resilience, repair, recovery is just amplified, which means that anything you're looking to correct will be enhanced and will last longer, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
I love it.
So I want to talk about what actually keeps the skin healthy for the long run. So if you want your skin to age as well as it can, what actually works no matter what your budget is, in your opinion? What are like the non-negotiables?
You've got to keep it simple and focus on the essentials. And this is something that we do as a brand exceptionally well. We call it the core four. So you've got your vitamin C, your retinol, your AGE defense, which is for, advanced stages of aging where we're starting to see signs of glycation and glycated skin, but also environmental defense. And I use that very intentionally, that term very intentionally, is not just UV, it's full environmental expansion of defense. And those are the core four products that you need to have in your routine, regardless of what skincare journey you're on, whether, you're treating acne or you're treating rosacea or advanced stages of aging, prejuvenation, and even discoloration. If you start with those 3 or 4 products first, and then you go on to correct with the right serum and moisturizer. But I can tell you right now, when you start with those essentials, and these essentials have been around for a very long time, they're really the gold standard when it comes to what the skin absolutely needs on a regular basis for that defense first mindset. What we've done is we've taken these gold standard ingredients and we've optimized what they do to the skin, how they're introduced into the skin, keeping that modern skin phenotype in mind. So, a retinol is important, and we know how a retinol is going to function. We love retinol, but we know, especially now with sensitivities that we're seeing, is that people automatically think they're allergic to retinol, right? They start it and they stop it. But if you formulate retinol in a way that respects the barrier, that reduces inflammation and optimize is what retinol can do through peptide activation, you can do so much more and use it more regularly. And retinol is an ingredient that needs to be chronically, consistently signaling in order to see its full effects. So we have taken that, those essential products and optimized it through delivery systems or ingredient integrations, to optimize with the modern day needs.
Yeah.
I'd start there.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Yeah.
100%.
I think we're going to change ours. We always say there's a 4-step routine. We do like cleanser, vitamin C, moisturizer, and
but Alumier MD has their, which we didn't talk a lot about the brand too much because, but that gives us it's a newer brand for us. We just brought it in. On Boutique Skin Envie, and it's I know made in Canada. We love that it's made in Canada, and one of the number one brands. And in all the reports that I've been reading lately, it is one of the biggest brands in North America, from my understanding.
Yes.
So you're there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started in Canada and the UK and then expanded into Ireland. We've, remained in the top spot, the UK and Ireland, for a couple of years now, and in the top 3 for Canada. Recently, the last couple of years, expanded into Europe. Italy and Spain are our 2 largest markets.
Interesting.
I think we're number 2 in Europe already after a couple of years, and making our way into the US with incredible success so far. We are now, yes. We have been for a little while.
Okay.
And it's been incredible. It's been an incredible journey, but the brand itself has evolved drastically.
I know.
And,
I've been following it because I've been in the industry for 30 years, and I remember when it came to market and you guys blasted through Canada. I've never seen a brand do that before in all of my years in the industry. It was like Alumier was literally everywhere. You had a very unique concept initially and a very strong peel system. I know that people really loved your back bar, your facials and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like you mentioned something before about having more of a holistic approach.
Yeah.
We definitely believe in that 360-degree approach, right?
Yeah.
It's the home care products that are backed by substantial science, but also having tools available in your professional back bar that you can leverage independently or adjunctively with the therapies that you offer today. And we're seeing more and more of a demand for combination therapies. And as expectations continue to rise, patients want more when they visit you. So having that available to you through peels that can be modified and
Yeah.
customized has been incredible for the brand. And leading now with this as the brand in oxidative aging defense is so wildly relevant, and it's something, the exposome has been studied in science for the last 18, 20 years, and it's only now slowly starting to make its way into the professional space. And our whole range, our whole portfolio supports this, but we start with the core four.
I love it. I love it.
I need
That's
to
the
try it. Gotta
foundation.
simplify it, right?
That's the foundation, right?
Yeah,
So let's get
so
into the
overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's
It
a
is
lot.
a lot. It's extremely overwhelming. There's
Yeah.
so much information.
Yeah, there is a lot, and a lot of misinformation
Yeah.
mostly, and
Crazy.
trends and TikTok and Instagram that lead you down these rabbit holes of like, where are you going? So let's get into the final section of our episode today, which is our rapid fire. We're going to ask you 3 questions.
So whatever comes to mind first.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah.
The most overhyped ingredient in skin longevity right now, and the one that's quietly underrated.
I would say, overhyped, I'm going to complicate things now talking about simplicity. Overhyped isn't necessarily an ingredient per se, because there's lots of great ingredients. I think what's overhyped are products making regenerative claims without regenerative evidence. And that's where the whole longevity piece is just so diluted. So I think that is overhyped and not really supported. Underrated, peptides. Because we're seeing,
but we're seeing
I love
we're
my
seeing a
peptides.
rise on peptides
Huge.
everywhere. Yeah, we're seeing it everywhere.
Huge. So
I love that though.
Do I need to be on peptides?
You probably
100%.
are. You probably
Topical
are.
peptides.
Topical peptides. I'm sure they're included in some of the products that you're using, but
yes,
we'll talk about that after.
I feel like I'm missing out.
I know. Fear of missing out, right?
Yeah,
we'll have a chat after this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll get you going.
Well, I do have some Alumier MD products in my office that they sent to me for us to try. So we can do that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
I love it. I can't wait. One thing you believed about skin 5 years ago that science has changed your mind on.
So I would say 5 years ago, I probably spent more time looking for the next breakthrough ingredient category. What I've come to appreciate is that many of those gold standard ingredients remain gold standard for a reason. So like I said, the C's, the A's, the sunscreen. So what's changed isn't necessarily the ingredients. These days, it's the skin. We're treating a very different type of skin. So today, what has shifted in my mindset is focusing less on replacing these foundational ingredients and finding better, more innovative ways to optimize them so that they can do what they need to do in the modern world.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting.
20 years from now, what are we going to look back on from today's regenerative skincare and cringe at?
I wonder if you'll agree with me on this one. I think we'll cringe at how focused we were on perfection. I think we'll realize we spent far too much time chasing visible signs of aging without fully understanding what caused them in the first place. And I think we'll also cringe at how reactive we were instead, as opposed to proactive.
Yeah.
Again, constantly trying to aggressively treat this damage. I think we'll really cringe at how aggressive we've been with our skin. What do you think?
I think it's going to be this
I
glass
agree.
skin. Cringe at this whole glass skin.
This perfection.
That goes into the perfection that you were saying. It's like, and also the filters too, which is it's all in the same realm.
Well, I think that's where it all starts, right? It's just this expectation that we're going to look like these filters. So let's strip the skin. Let's aggressively strip it back.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And my hope is that the future becomes much more about understanding biology, connecting with pros who understand the skin best, and empowering the skin to become so much more resilient rather than just trying to make it look younger with a quick fix.
Yeah. And, hopefully positive messaging to young people also for me is, when you hear about what's going on in the industry, of young teenagers and stuff being marketed to for, they have to get into anti-aging when they're 13 and 14 years old. That kind of stuff cringes me today. I just think it's going to cringe us in the future as well. Hopefully it stops.
Yes.
Hopefully it stops.
I
That's
agree.
what I'm praying for. So thank you so much for joining us today, Giselle. It was really,
that
really
was
nice.
so much fun.
Yeah,
and
it's
thank
very
you for
fun.
Max for joining us.
Yeah. We
That was
really
a snooze
enjoyed
fest.
talking to you, and I learned a lot today, and I really like your outlook on the industry. It's very
Refreshing.
it's refreshing and empowering at the same time. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I thank you both as well. This has been one of the most fun podcasts I've done. And I actually really love the way that you continue to bring education to the forefront of what you do in a way that is so transparent, non-sugar coated. And I applaud you for doing that because it takes a lot of time and effort. And it was an absolute pleasure to be on your show. So thank you again. I hope we can do it again soon.
Yes, of course.
Would be
Thank
great.
you. Thank you for listening to Skin Talks.
If this episode inspired you, taught you something new, or just made you feel seen, please share with someone you love. And if you believe in thoughtful and empowering conversations that help you make better choices for yourself around your beauty and wellness, please rate and review the show. It helps us to grow our community, and we deeply appreciate it. Because this isn't just about skin.
It's about claiming your beauty, feeling strong, informed, and at home in yourself.
See you next week.